It's so easy to miss it. A tiny female hummingbird tucked up in a nest, barely bigger than a walnut. Most people walk by without ever noticing. But if you slow down and really look, you'll see there's a whole world happening right above your head. For the past few weeks, we've been watching her and her family in Pastura Films Ohan's front yard, filming their first flights, their constant feeding, and how they defend their nest like little feathered warriors. We wanted to understand them better, why they act the way they do, and what makes them different. We talked to Eric Pittman, a filmmaker from Canada who was featured in the award-winning Hummingbird documentary, The Bird in My Backyard. He spent years filming them and learned a lot about how they live.
And they're incredibly tough for such small birds.
Their environment is so fraught with peril. It's amazing that they make it through their first year. It's amazing they even make it out of the nest. And that's why I film them, because each one is such a discovery. Each one is such a miracle.
I want to know what's like the superpower of the hummingbird. What's special about the hummingbird that other birds don't have, or other pollinators or pest control animals?
Their superpower would be in finding food and figuring out how to keep themselves alive in these times of scarcity. You know, there's an easy superpower to discuss, which is being fearless and being completely still. They're one of the few birds that you can walk by 100 times and never notice, because they will just sit still and watch you go by. But if they feel that you're too close, then they'll buzz off and go away. But if they're trying to protect their nest, they will come out and buzz you in the face and do all that.
We noticed that too.
Yeah, and they're completely fearless. These birds, it's a foreign concept to them to be anything other than self-preserving. People have called me to try to analyze where hummingbirds will nest, or why hummingbirds do this or that. And there really is no way of predicting things like where a hummingbird's going to make a nest. You know, I've seen about 130 or 140 nests at this time, and I've seen them from 2 feet off the ground to the tops of oak trees. And there's just no way to predict it. I had somebody from Washington University approach me with making a database to make an algorithm to predict where birds were going to be, but you just can't really do it. So here's my analogy. You know how we exist in a three-dimensional world. You know, we're now in the physical world, and we inhabit the human dimension. The fourth dimension, they've got some sort of mathematical algorithm that determines how the fourth dimension should be. But we don't know what beyond that is. And I think we should stop calling it the first dimension, third dimension, fourth dimension, whatever, and start calling it the human dimension, and then the bird dimension, the dog dimension, the cat dimension, because birds and other animals perceive the world in such a different way than we do that we can't even conceive of what they see.
What's the most fundamental difference in perception you would say that the birds have from us, especially hummingbirds?
Speed, the speed that they process things at. They can fly through the woods at 20 miles an hour. There's no way we could do that. And finding food. I think that birds see food much differently than we do. It may glow, it may have some other resonance that they're picking up on, but I think that those are the ways that birds find their food and things in the forest. I don't think it's, for us, it would be really hard to pick out the dog food kibble from a gravel pit. But for crows, no problem. They're there. They see it. It must glow like a beacon for them. And I think that's the same sort of thing that hummingbirds have. I've seen some reports that crows, if we were to see a crow the way that crows see crows, their feathers would be they'd be very colorful. We only see black.
Yeah.
But and you've seen probably illustrations of what a bee sees when it goes flying around flowers. Yes. You know, all the strands of the flower drive it into the central section where the nectar is for it. And I think that's the way that birds see things too.
Do you think that it's like a neon sign saying, come here, come here, come here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a specific like a nectar, like man-made that you would recommend for people to feed them? Like, is there a specific recipe that you use that it's not commercial, or you just use commercial stuff?
Well, the closest that we can create nectar that they get is with glucose, and that's white sugar. So white sugar, four glasses of water to 1 cup of sugar. That's just the standard Hummingbird nectar formula, and that seems to be the best. You know, if you have things like brown sugar, I'm told that there's minerals in there that they can't process. The same with honey. You know, I've had several birds that have 3, 4, 5, 6 nests in my backyard in 1 year. And when that happens, they're quite used to me walking around the yard, feeding the feeders, changing the water, doing what I have to do. And so it becomes a trust bond.
Do you think it goes beyond like a primal instinct thing, like survival? Do they sense something else in humans?
We probably don't do as much as we think we do to their world. Again, I go back to that bird dimension. They experience things so differently than us that I'm probably just at times a walking flower.
Or,
you know, you got to
inconvenience. Flower or inconvenience, either or, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're used to. I mean, I've heard people say you put a feeder out, it's going to keep the bird there. You take the feeder away, and now it's dependent on the feeder. The bird's going to die. It's going to be sick or whatever. No, hummingbirds are used to flowers coming in and out of season. So if you have a salvia plant today, it may not be there tomorrow, and they're okay with that. They'll go to a forget-me-not plant or some other kind of flower. So it doesn't really, they won't get addicted to your feeder. So, you know, if I go out in the woods and they see me, it's only because they think, oh, he's going to flower. You know, so he's got that red flower out. He's flowering. It's time to nibble at that little flower. I don't think there's much of a perception. I mean, they really have no idea what any of our modern technology is. They're, you know, the whole thing about them relating to the human world, I think, is our egotistical manifestation of our need to be important to other creatures, and we're really not. You know, these birds, the bird that hatched in the film, Solo, had her first nest in my yard this year in the front yard. And so she was about 10 to 11 months old at that time. And she's got no blueprints. She doesn't know how to build a nest. Nobody taught her how to build a nest, but one day she just got up and started building a nest.
Downloaded.
Yeah, exactly, right? She downloaded the information somehow and started building a nest and had eggs, and then, you know, knew to hatch them and take care of the chicks. It's really a fascinating process, but, you know, where the instructions come from that is beyond me.
I noticed that the male hummingbird did not help in the raising of the chicks. I only saw the mom. I know it's the mom because it's not as colorful as the dad.
The male does help if there's a predator that comes into the area. Like, for instance, if an owl comes into the little section of woods that I film, every hummingbird in that section of woods is going to be there. They're going to have 7, 8, 9, 10 hummingbirds circling around this owl, you know, chirping at it to drive it off, and they're going to be males and females. So even though the male has no concept of, or no care apparently, of the nest and the eggs and the chicks and all that, he still does his thing to help out with, to provide for the species, right? The survival of the species.
And once the chicks leave the nest, is there still a bond with them, or do they just move on to the next?
They still get fed by the mother. So they get fed for about 2 weeks from mom, and they have a really specific high-pitched peep, which they usually don't do a single sound until they leave the nest.
Yeah.
But once they leave the nest, they start to peep, and then that helps mother find them. Yep.
That's how I found them too.
After it's down there too, right?
Yeah.
But the after about 2 weeks, they lose that ability to peep. So then they can't. That helps mother. Well, you know, by that time they should have learned to feed themselves. But if they haven't, they're going to have to figure it out pretty quick because they're losing the language to ask for food. because they just won't be able to peep. Their little voice changes. It stops being able to make that high-pitched peep.
Does the mom kick them out of the territory, or they're kind of lingering and blurring?
No, they stay. They stay around.
Even
She
after
doesn't.
the twigs?
Yeah, yeah. Just yesterday, I was watching a mother hummingbird. She's building another nest, but her chick came and sat beside her while she's building this nest. The chick from the previous brood. So they're still around and they still interact. So this is part of that whole social structure that we don't know about. By the time they get to 3-4 weeks old, they've pretty much mingled into the general hummingbird population, but they will tend to stay fairly close to the nest, so they sort of expand out from there.
Back in Ohan's front yard, our hummingbirds have hatched. And the parents are already starting again their tireless routine. So next time you hear that familiar hum in your yard, stop and watch for a while, because even in the most ordinary places, there's a wild secret world to be discovered, one that rewards patience, respect, and a little curiosity.